All right, welcome back. So yeah, this situational awareness is absolutely blowing my mind, to the point where I feel like I have to take immediate action. So my CCNA, this is a networking channel at its core, it is expiring. It expires sometime in 2025. So I need to get on that now. In order to get a CCNP, CCIE, you no longer have to do prerequisite exams. You can just directly attempt it. But, you know, it's about momentum. If you let it slip, you're going to have trouble getting motivated later on. So as a result of reading this PDF, Situational Awareness, about the expansion of AI over the next few years, what the next decade is going to look like, I've decided I need to pivot into, if I have a choice in a cert, data center is the right choice, because it's going to be $1 trillion space in a few years, where there's going to be trillions of dollars around the world invested into this. There's going to be data centers built that the total power that will be allocated just to data centers on the planet will be 100% of the total power produced in the United States right now. So they're going to build another United States, and I want to be a part of that. So in order to do that, I need skills in data center. I think CCNP is an okay place to start. I don't know. Let's Cisco AI data center. Let's see what that says. So they have AI native network infrastructure. Yeah, so it seems like a decent space, hopefully. Yeah, so AI takes center stage at the data center. I know Arista's a really good one. And then the key is virtualization is big for data center as well. But NVIDIA has their own data centers, so I think that's where like a lot of the money's gonna go. And I don't see if there's a way to get like a certification in NVIDIA data center. But you know, momentum matters a lot to learning. If you don't have that like motivation or that spark to learn, it's hard to just like, you know, go get a PhD tomorrow. It's a lot of work. So any little tiny thing you can use to your advantage. Like for me, my CCNA is going to expire. I'll be sad to see it expire. So the CCNP data center, I think makes more sense than anything else. So I already bought the book, and I laid down my first video, just an introduction video. But for now, I want to get this situational awareness PDF finished up. I'm really enjoying it. I'm about 50%. I'm exactly 50% of the way through. So I want to see it through to the end before I move on to something else. So far, every 10 times scale up in AI investment seems to yield the necessary returns. GPT 3.5 unleashed the ChatGPT mania. The estimated 500 million cost for the GPT-4 cluster would have been paid off by the reported billions of annual revenue for Microsoft and OpenAI. See above calculations. And a 2024 class training cluster in the billions would easily pay off if Microsoft / OpenAI AI revenue continues on track to a 10 plus billion revenue run rate. So the author made the point that the value of this is worth it. I mean, what's the value of being able to just a small group of a few hundred people overthrowing the Aztec empire of a million people? You know, that's the kind of value we're talking about. So it's not just monetary value, but even monetary value. You know, there should be a 10 billion annual run rate. So I guess I'm not sure what a run rate is. So tell me what a run rate is there's a if there's a 2 billion revenue run rate. So let's say that a run rate. So reports suggest OpenAI was at 1 billion revenue run rate in August and a 2 billion revenue run rate in February of the next year. So that's roughly a doubling every 6 months. So what is a run rate in this context?
Run rate is a financial metric used to extrapolate future performance based on current financial data. It's particularly useful for estimating annualized financial results from a shorter period, such as a month or a quarter. This is often done by taking revenue or other financial metric from a recent period and multiplying it by the number of those periods in a year to estimate what the full year's performance might look like if current trends continue. In the context of your example, where OpenAI reportedly had a revenue run rate of $1 billion in August and then $2 billion in February of the next year, the term run rate is being used to estimate the annual revenue based on data available at those times. Here's what this means. $1 billion revenue run rate in August. This suggests that the revenue data available at that time, likely for a month or quarter, was annualized to estimate that OpenAI could generate $1 billion in revenue over a full year if the revenue patterns at that time continued unchanged.
All right. So let's get the short answer here, and I want to get my I don't know why it's not. Oh, because I have to disconnect. Shoot. Okay, well, I'll do that. I'm going to disconnect quick. So I'm running OBS on my personal device. So I will use my KVM here and disconnect my headphones. All right, and now go back and connect. Okay, there we go. So a run rate is a financial metric used to extrapolate future performance based on current financial data. So it's particularly useful for so yeah, this is how much money they're going to make. So in the context of their example, they're going to make $1 billion for a investment of you know, $500 million. Yeah, and if you buy a training cluster today, which will cost you probably a few billion, you're on track to making over 10 billion. So if it costs you 9 billion, you could get $1 billion. Having an extra $1 billion would be kind of nice, I think. But if it costs you less than 5 billion, you could double your money in billions. Oh man, that's a good deal. So the boom is investment led. It takes time from a huge order of GPUs to build the clusters, build the models, and roll them out. And the clusters being planned today are many years out. But if the returns on the last, and let me, I'm getting monitoring. It sounds like I'm getting monitoring. Oh, you know what? Because my input is, yeah. Oh, no, it is right. It is right. My output's right. Okay, well, I don't know what's going on. Anyways, the boom is investment led. It takes time from a huge order of GPUs to build the clusters, build the models, and roll them out. And the clusters being planned today are many years out. But if the returns on the last GPU order keep materializing, investment will continue to skyrocket and outpace revenue, plowing in even more capital in a bet that the next 10 times will keep paying off. A key milestone for AI revenue that I like to think is, when will a big tech company, Google, Microsoft, Meta, etc., hit a 100 billion revenue run rate from AI products and API? These companies have on the order of 100 to 300 billion of revenue today. 100 billion would thus start representing a very substantial fraction of their business. Very naively extrapolating out the doubling every 6 months, supposing we hit a 10 billion revenue run rate in early 2025, suggests this would happen mid-2026. So we got a footnote here, 54, after the next paragraph. That may seem like a stretch, but it seems to me to require surprisingly little imagination to reach that milestone. For example, there are around 350 million paid subscribers to Microsoft Office. Could you get a third of these to be willing to pay $100 per month for an AI add-on? That's a good question. For an average worker, I mean, I pay $20 for ChatGPT. For an average worker, that's only a few hours a month productivity gained. Models powerful enough to make that justifiable seem very doable in the next couple of years. Yeah, so imagine you $100 a month, you depending on how sophisticated your AI is, it could start making you money and pay for itself. So out of 350 million paid subscribers, I'm sure, so what the author is saying here is it's a good investment. So number 54, a big uncertainty for me is what the delays are for the technology to diffuse and be adopted. Right, and that's one for me too. Like I'm would say I'm a big early adopter, but like even some of my friends who are other tech professionals, they're not really using AI kind of the way I am. I feel like I'm very much an early adopter. I think it's plausible revenue is slowed because immediate pre-AGI models take a lot of schlep, so like a lot of hard work to properly integrate into company workflows. Historically, it's taken a while to fully harvest the productivity gains from new general purpose technologies. This is where the sonic boom discussion earlier comes in. As we unhobble models and they start looking more like agents / drop-in remote workers, deploying them becomes much easier. Rather than having to completely remake some workflow to harvest a 25% productivity gain from a GPT chatbot, instead you'll get models that you can onboard and work with as you would a new coworker. For example, just directly substitute for an engineer rather than needing to train up engineers to use some new tool. Or in the extreme, and later on, you won't need to completely redesign a factory to work with some new tool. You'll just bring in the humanoid robots. That said, this may lead to some discontinuity in economic value and revenue generated, depending on how quickly we can unhobble models. So even if you have the capacity to make that advancement, until you actually implement it, you set up the robot workers and turn them on, that advancement will not occur. It's hard to understand the ensuing reverberations. This would make AI products the biggest revenue driver for America's largest corporations, and by far their biggest area of growth. Forecasts of overall revenue growth for these companies would skyrocket. Stock models would follow, and we might see our first $10 trillion company soon thereafter. Big tech at this point would be willing to go all out, each investing many hundreds of billions at least into further AI scale out. We probably see our first many $100 billion corporate bond sale then. What will happen to interest rates will be interesting. See Tyler Cohen, a computer scientist here, Chow, Mishlage, and Halperin here. Every 100 billion, it gets harder to see the contours. But if we are truly on the path to AGI, the returns will be there. White-collar workers are paid tens of trillions of dollars in wages annually worldwide. A drop-in remote worker that automates even a fraction of white-collar cognitive jobs, imagine, say, a truly automated AI coder, would pay for the trillion-dollar cluster. If nothing else, the national security import could well motivate a government project bundling the nation's resources in our race to AGI. More later. Historical precedents. $1 trillion per year of annual AI investment by 2027 seems outrageous. but it's worth taking a look at other historical reference classes. Hey, it doesn't seem outrageous to me. That's why I'm getting my data center cert. In their peak years of funding, the Manhattan and Apollo programs reached 4%. No, not 4%. A fraction of that, a tenth of that, reached 0.4% of GDP, or around 100 billion annually to today. Surprisingly small. At $10 trillion a year, AI investment would be about 3% of GDP. So you can imagine when nations start getting involved in this, $1 trillion per year isn't really that big of an amount. It's a small percentage of the budget. All right. So between 19 and I wonder if this is adjusted for inflation. Let's ask ChatGPT that. Do you think this is adjusted for inflation?
Based on reference to today's dollar values in your example, saying that the Manhattan and Apollo programs would equate to about $100 billion annually today, it seems the figures are indeed adjusted for inflation.
Oh, they are?
This adjustment is crucial for making historical financial data comparable to present-day economic.
Oh, yeah, he said that right there. Okay, wow, that is a smaller number than I would have thought. Okay, so between 1996 and 2001, telecoms invested nearly $1 trillion in today's dollars in building out internet infrastructure. So that's what the future is going to be like. It's going to be like 1996 through 2001 when telecoms were investing that kind of money. But it's going to be like that for AI data centers. From 1841 to 1850, private British railway investments totaled a cumulative around 40% of British GDP at the time. A similar fraction of U.S. GDP would be equivalent to around 11 trillion over a decade. Many trillions are being spent on the green transition. So it's giving a sense of what it means to spend $1 trillion and kind of making that seem more credible, more easy to believe that $1 million could be spent on this. $1 trillion, rather. Rapidly growing, so $1 million, right? Or wait, $1 million, no, not $1 million, $1 million. So 1,000, $1 million is $1 trillion, right?
Actually, $1 trillion is significantly more than $1 million.
No, I'm saying $1 million. No, I'm saying $1 million 1,000 times is $1 trillion.
I see what you're saying now.
Oh, shoot. Oh, it's $1 billion. Oh, it's 10 trillion. Oh, no, I was right. It's $1 million. I was right. Okay, so yeah, this is what I thought. $1 trillion is 1 million instances of $1 million.
Yes, that's correct. $1 trillion is indeed 1 million instances.
Hey, I'll take some of that. Just give $1 million to everyone in my zip code. There's less than 1 million people there. All right, so rapidly growing economies often spend a high fraction of their GDP on investment. For example, China has spent more than 40% of its GDP on investment for 2 decades, equivalent to 11 trillion annually, given US GDP. In the historically most exigent national security circumstances, wartime, borrowing to finance the national effort has often comprised enormous fractions of GDP. During World War II, the UK and France and Germany borrowed over 100% of their GDPs, while the US borrowed over 20%. During World War II, the UK and Japan borrowed over 100% of their GDPs, while U.S. borrowed over 60% of GDP, equivalent to over 17 trillion today. So 1 trillion per year of total AI investment by 2027 would be dramatic, among the very largest capital build-outs ever, but would not be unprecedented. And a $1 trillion individual training cluster by the end of the decade seems on the table. And further out, but if AGI truly led to substantial increases in economic growth, 10 trillion plus annually would start being plausible, the reference class being investment rates of countries during high growth periods. All right, so the next section is power. Probably the single biggest constraint on the supply side will be power. Already at nearer term scales, 1 gigawatt divided by 2026, and especially 10 gig. So he's saying that there will be 1 gigawatt by 2026, which is 2 years from now, and especially 10 gigawatt by 2028. Power has become the binding constraint. There simply isn't much spare capacity, and power contracts are usually long-term locked in. And building, say, a new gigawatt-class nuclear power plant takes a decade. I'll wonder when we'll start seeing things like tech companies buying aluminum smelting companies for their gigawatt-class power contracts. So since 2011, the Alouette smelter uses 930 megawatt electricity at maximum production capacity. So there's it seems doable. So we can see over time here, and these are just some rough calculations. American power generation has increased, but the total AI demand by the largest training cluster, and we didn't have AI training clusters like that before. Look at how that's increasing compared to. So yeah, something's got to give with this line. It has to start increasing as well. So figure 30 comparing trends on total U.S. electricity production to our back of envelope estimates on AI electricity demand. So something's got to give. So it's a good time to become an electrical engineer, or an engineer on who works on power and electricity. Basically, a data center person. Like data centers need like actual engineers that are ABET certified, electrical engineers, right? They need a lot of those kinds of people, right?
Yes, data centers indeed require a range of engineering expertise, including professionals with accredited engineering degrees, particularly in fields like electrical engineering. The BET, Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology, certification ensures that the educational standards meet the requirements of the professional engineering field, which is critical for roles that involve complex and critical systems like those in data centers. Here are some of the key engineering roles typically found in data centers. Electrical engineers. They design and maintain the power systems that are essential for the uninterrupted operation of data centers. This includes power distribution units, backup generators, and uninterruptible power supplies, UPS. Mechanical engineers.
Yeah, so I'll be a network engineer with a CCNP data center certification, if I can make it happen. I'm starting my weight loss plan next month, so I'll certainly have the time. I don't know if I'll have the energy. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, but you can't just get like that sort of certification, ABET, right? Like you basically have to go to a good engineering school to get something like that. Yeah.
That's correct. The BET certification isn't something an individual engineer can obtain directly. It's a standard applied educational programs. If you're seeking to become an engineer in a field that typically requires or values a BET accredited education, such as civil, mechanical, or electrical engineering, you would need to graduate from an ABET accredited program. The BET accreditation assures that a college or university program meets the quality standards of the profession for which that program prepares graduates.
Yeah, electrical engineering would be a good bet. If you're watching this and you're thinking about what you want to study in college, remember there's a $1 trillion space, and it depends on electrical engineering. Like, there you go. All right, so total U.S. electricity generation has barely grown 5% in the last decade. Utilities are starting to get excited about AI. Instead of 2.6% growth over the next 5 years, they now estimate 4.7%. But which is not enough. But they're barely pricing in what's coming. The $1 trillion 100 gigawatt cluster alone would require around 20% of current U.S. electricity generation in 6 years. Together with large inference capacity, demand will be multiples higher. So I think it's going to be probably nuclear power. To most, this seems probably out of the question. Some are betting on Middle Eastern autocracies. Oh, like autocratic governments, Middle Eastern autocratic governments who have been going around autocracies who have been going around offering boundless power and giant clusters to get their rulers a seat at the AGI table. So, but then you kind of yeah. But it's totally possible to do this in the United States. We have interesting. We have natural abundant gas, so it might not be we have abundant natural gas, so it might not be nuclear. So thanks to Austin Vernon, private correspondents, for helping with these estimates. So powering a 100 gigawatt cluster would take only a few % of U.S. natural gas production and could be done rapidly. Even 100 gigawatt cluster is surprisingly doable. Right now, the Marcellus/Utica shale around Pennsylvania alone is producing around 36 billion cubic feet a day of gas. That would be enough to generate just under 150 gigawatt continuously with generators, and combined cycle power plants could output 250 gigawatt due to their higher efficiency. It would take about 1,200 new wells for the 100 gigawatt cluster. New wells produce around 0.01 BCF per day. Each rig can drill roughly 3 wells per month, so 40 rigs, the current rig count in the Marcellus, could build up the production base for 100 gigawatt in less than a year. The Marcellus had a rig count of around 80 as recently as 2019, so it would not be taxing to add 40 rigs to build up the production base, number 61. So 60 footnote, each well produces around 20 BCF over its lifetime, meaning 2 new wells a month would replace the depleted reserves. That is, it would need only 1 rig to maintain the production. And then 61, though it would be more efficient to add less rigs and build up over a longer time frame than 10 months. More generally, U.S. natural gas production has more than doubled in a decade. Simply continuing that trend could power multiple trillion-dollar data centers. The harder part would be building enough generators/turbines. This wouldn't be trivial, but it seems doable with about 100 billion of capex. The capex costs for natural gas power plants seem to be under 1,000 per kilowatt, meaning the capex for 100 kilowatt of natural gas power plants would be around 100 billion. For 100 gigawatt of natural gas power plants, combined cycle plants could be built in about 2 years. The timeline for generators would be even shorter still, 64. Footnote. Solar and batteries aren't a totally crazy alternative, but it does just seem rougher than natural gas. I did appreciate Casey Handmer's calculation of tiling the Earth in solar panels. With current GPUs, the global solar data centers compute is equivalent to around 150 billion humans, though if our computers can eventually match human brain efficiency, the human brain is very efficient, we could support more like 5 quadrillion AI souls. All right, and the footnote up here, a cubic foot of natural gas generates about 0.13 kilowatt per hour. Right? Is that what that means? Shale gas production was around 70 billion cubic feet per day in the U.S. in 2020. Suppose we doubled production again and the extra capacity all went to compute clusters. That's 3,322 terawatts per hour per year, right? Is that what that means? I don't know. Of electricity, or enough for almost 4 gigawatt clusters. So the author's making a point here that this is not science fiction. If we go after natural gas in the United States, we basically have everything we need right now. The barriers to even trillions of dollars of data center build out in the United States are entirely self-made. Well-intentioned but rigid climate commitments, not just by the government, but green data center commitments by Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and so on, stand in the way of the obvious fast solution. At the very least, so we can't really go after the natural gas. At the very least, I think that, yeah, even if we don't do natural gas, a broad deregulatory agenda would unlock the solar/battery/SMR/geothermal mega projects, permitting utility regulation, FERC regulation of transmission lines, and NEPA environmental review makes things that should take a few years take a decade or more. We don't have that kind of time. That's kind of interesting. We're going to drive the AGI data centers to the Middle East under the thumb of brutal, capricious autocrats. I prefer clean energy too, but this is simply too important for U.S. national security. We need a new level of determination to make this happen. The power constraint must and will be solved. So this is just kind of an interesting point, and I'm a big fan of the Great Simplification podcast, and this is actually really well related to what we're reading here, because this is by Nate Haugens, Natehaugens. Nate Haugens is a professor at the University of Minnesota. So he actually gives a course free online on YouTube that I've watched that explain. It's kind of like this situational awareness. Nate Haugens. It's similar to this, where it's like telling us like what the world is like today, and one of the things that he kind of changed my mind about in regards to climate change is that the only real solution to climate change is to stop the kind of power production that we need to live in a civilized modern world. So we should all just live in caves and live in huts, and not drive cars. We should not use computers at all. We should not use lamps, and that. So really, there is no real solution to climate change besides that. If we use renewables, then we still produce energy with renewables. It's not like just using renewables means that we're no longer producing, the energy in the way. It's not, the greenhouse emissions are a result of the things we're doing in our modern society. And we will continue to do those things even if we use renewable energy. Renewable energy is not a solution to climate change, because what it does is it perhaps, and this is arguable, turns down the production of new. Let me explain this. So it's like let's say that you're drowning, and you're drowning in a pool that is 10 feet tall, and you're at the bottom of the pool. There's weights around your ankles, and you're drowning. You're not going to survive if the 9 feet of water high in the pool is lowered to 10 feet to 8 feet. And not only that, what happens when we use renewables is not that we lower the water from 9 feet to 8 feet. What happens is, instead of pouring more water into it at a rate of say 1 foot per hour, perhaps we can pour water into it at a rate of a half a foot per hour. That's what we're trying to do with climate change. We're trying using renewables for climate change. We're trying to do something that won't effectively solve the problem. So, I mean, that's another reason why AGI and superintelligence is so critical, because we need a real solution. And renewables, I mean, I guess it'll help to slow down the rate in which we're adding water to the pool. But really, if you're weighted down at the bottom and drowning, it doesn't matter how much water is in the pool, as long as there's more water than it's possible for you to get above and get out of your state of drowning. So I think that's a good way to sum up. And I wish I could say where it was. It was Nate Hagen's If I Do course. It was a really good course. Yeah, Reality 101. This was really good. I really liked this. So, yeah, this was great. This was absolutely great. Was it? Oh, was this it? Reality 101. So, yeah, this is a University of Minnesota honors freshman course. And I really, really liked it. I don't think it was this particular playlist. Oh, you know what? It was this one. Oh. Yeah, it was this one. It was the human predicament. So, that's where I learned that, and I think I did a good job making that analogy. The problem is that we're weighted down by rocks and chains at the bottom of a pool. The problem is not that the water is filling up at a rate where, you know, the problem is that the pool is so full that we're drowning, and the only answer is to completely empty the pool, which you know, nobody can. That's kind of not a realistic solution to that. So the other solutions we have are you know, to the level of effectiveness of continuing to add more water to the pool at a slower rate. You know, it's just not a solution to the problem. And I don't know much about it, but yeah, this was the course here, Reality, the Human Predicament. Human Predicament. Yeah, this is it right here, Human Predicament. Man, I'm having a lot of trouble finding where I actually saw this. But I'm pretty sure it was on his actual channel. But anyways, great channel. I recommend following it. And yeah, so it was a little bit of an aside from the author, though, talking about it in this way. But it's something we might see. We might see, you know, with how crazy things will get over the next few years. The United States might just completely abandon all you know, renewable energy, climate change initiatives, and just go for broke for AI like this. All right, so I think that's all I can do. So yeah, it's a late night one, so I can't go super far. So when I come back, we'll read about chips, And then this one looks interesting. Clusters of Democracy. I want to read more about that. Oh, we're so close to finishing it. You know what? Let's just finish this out, and then come back to a new section. So I'm gonna take a few extra minutes to just finish this out. It might take more than that, but I'll take a break and I'll be right back. All right, so hopefully this won't take much longer than 20 minutes. An hour I'm usually good for. So the next section is chips. While chips are usually what comes to mind when people think about AI supply constraints, they're likely a smaller constraint than power. Global production of AI chips is still a pretty small percent of TSMC leading edge production, likely less than 10%. There's a lot of room to grow in AI becoming a larger share of TSMC production. Indeed, 2024 production of AI chips around 5 to 10 million H100 equivalents. So remember the NVIDIA H100, we actually saw that on Amazon. So let's go back on Amazon and look up the H100. And we can see they're running, it will run you about $30,000 or so. You might be able to play Witcher 3 on all ultra settings on it. You probably won't be able to play Cyberpunk. It's kind of in the version of all of these jokes here. It's got a bad rating on here because people are making jokes about because they know the secret of these things they're used for this AI race, so they're making a lot of jokes about it. Yeah. So here's one that costs a little bit more. Oh, it's still available to purchase. It's not too bad. All right. So, yeah. So global production of AI chips is still, oh yeah, equivalents would already be almost enough for hundreds of billion. So $100 of billion cluster if they were all diverted to one cluster. From a pure logic fab standpoint, around 100% of TSMC, so this is Taiwan Superconductor Manufacturing Corporation, output for a year could already support the $1 trillion cluster, again if all the chips went to one data center. Of course, not all of TSMC would be able to be diverted to AI, and not all of AI chip production for a year will be for one training cluster. Total AI chip demand, including inference and multiple players, by 2030 will be a multiple of TSMC's current total leading edge logic chip capacity just for AI. TSMC doubled using revenue as a proxy in the last 5 years, and they'd likely need to go around at least twice as fast on their pace of expansion to meet AI chip demand. Massive new fab investments would be necessary. And then as far as the pure logical standpoint here, this poses an interesting question of why power requirements are going up so much before chip fab production starts being really constrained. A simple answer is while data centers run continuously at close to max power, most chips currently produced are idle a lot of the time. Currently, smartphones are close to half of leading chip demand and use a lot less energy per wafer area, trading transistors for serial operations and energy efficiency, and have slow utilization as smartphones are mostly idle. The AI revolution means working our transistors way harder, dedicating them all to constantly running high-performance AI data centers instead of idle, battery-powered energy-saving devices. H.T. Carl Schulman for this point. Even if raw logic fabs won't be the constraint, chip on wafer on substrate, COWOS, advanced packaging, connecting chips to memory, also made by TSMC, Intel, and others, and HBM memory, for which demand is enormous, are already key bottlenecks for the current AI GPU scale-up. These are more specialized to AI, unlike the pure logic chips, so there's less pre-existing capacity. In the near term, these will be the primary constraint on churning out more GPUs, and these will be the huge constraints as AI scales. Still, these are comparatively easy to scale, and it's been incredible watching TSMC literally build greenfield fabs, for example, entirely new facilities from scratch, to massively scale up CoWoS production this year. And NVIDIA is even starting to find CoWoS alternatives to work around the shortage. A new TSMC GigaFab, a technological marvel, costs around $20 billion in capex and produces 100,000 wafer starts a month. For hundreds of millions of AI GPUs a year by the end of the decade, TSMC would need to build dozens of these, as well as a huge build-out for memory, advanced packaging, networking, etc., which will be a major fraction of capex. It could add up to over 1 trillion of capex. It will be intense but doable. Perhaps the biggest roadblock will not be feasibility, but TSMC not even trying. TSMC does not yet seem AI scaling pilled. They think AI will only grow at a glacial 50% CAGR. So that might be an interesting thing to read next, because I feel like TSMC, they this author is just represents one side of the story. I feel like they'd be a good entity to hear from. Recent USG efforts, like the CHIPS Act, have been trying to onshore more chip production to the US as insurance in case of Taiwan contingency. While onshoring more of AI chip production to the US would be nice, it's less critical than having an actual data center on which the AGI lives in the US. If having chip production abroad is like having uranium deposits abroad, having the AGI data center abroad is like having the literal nukes be built and stored abroad. Given the dysfunction and cost we've seen from building fabs in the US in practice, my guess is we should prioritize data centers in the US while betting more heavily on democratic allies like Japan and South Korea for fab projects. Fab build-outs there seem much more functional. All right, so hopefully I can finish up this section. I'm really motivated to do so because it's exciting to finish the section. I like it. Yes, we got 2 pages. Let's do it. The clusters of democracy. Before the decade is out, many trillions of dollars of compute clusters will have been built. The only question is whether they will be built in America. Some are rumored to be betting on building them elsewhere, especially in the Middle East. Do we really want the infrastructure for the Manhattan Project to be controlled by some capricious Middle Eastern dictatorship? Capricious. So capricious means like operating on a whim, not operating with careful deliberation. The clusters that are being planned today may well be the clusters AGI and superintelligence are trained and run on, not just the cool big tech product clusters. The national interest demands that these are built in America or close democratic allies. Anything else creates an irreversible security risk. It risks the AGI weights getting stolen. It's a lot easier to do side channel attacks to exfiltrate weights with physical access and perhaps be shipped to China. It risks these dictatorships physically seizing the data centers to build and run AGI themselves when the AGI race gets hot, or even if these threats are only wielded implicitly, it puts AGI and superintelligence at unsavory dictator's whims. America solely regretted her energy dependence in the Middle East in the 70s, and we worked so hard to get it out from under their thumbs. We cannot make the same mistake again. The clusters can be built in the US, and we have to get our act together to make sure it happens in the US. American national security must come first before the allure of free-flowing Middle Eastern cash, arcane regulation, or even, yes, admirable climate commitments. We face a real system competition. Can the requisite industrial mobilization only be done in top-down autocracies? If American business is unshackled, America can build like none other, at least in red states. Being willing to use natural gas, or at the very least a broad-based deregulatory agenda, NEPA exemptions, fixing FERC, and transmission permitting at a federal level, overriding utility regulation, and using federal authorities to unlock land and grants of way is a national security priority. So yeah, that's a bit wild. I guess I don't know what to think about that. I guess if you're completely convinced that being the first superintelligence is the most important thing possible, and that it's able to be done within the next decade, then yeah, it makes sense to think that way. In any case, the potential is in full swing now. In the old days, when AGI was still a dirty word, some colleagues and I used to make theoretical economic models of what the path to AGI might look like. One feature of these models used to be a hypothetical AI wake-up moment when the world started realizing how powerful these models would be and began rapidly ramping up their investments, culminating in multiple % of GDP towards the largest training runs. It seemed far off then, but that time has come. 2023 was AI wake up. Behind the scenes, the most staggering techno-capital acceleration has been put into motion. Brace for the G-forces. I distinctly remember writing, "The takeoff has started," on my whiteboard in March of 2023. What all of this means for NVDA/TSM/ETC, I leave as an exercise for the reader. Hint, those with situational awareness bought much lower than you, but it's not even close to fully priced in. Yeah, so he's been saying to invest in the stock market in these companies. Mainstream sell-side analysts seem to assume only 10 to 20% year-over-year growth in NVIDIA revenue from CY24 to CY25, maybe 120 billion to 130 billion in CY25, or at least did until very recently. Insane. It's been pretty obvious for a while that NVIDIA is going to do over 20 billion of revenue in CY25. Interesting. All right. How do I invest in NVIDIA stocks?
Investing in NVIDIA stocks involves several steps. Here's a general guide on how to proceed. Educate yourself. Learn about the basics of stock investing, as well as specifics about NVIDIA as a company.
Yeah, tell me about that. So tell me the basics. Like, okay, so I have to open a brokerage account?
Limit order. Sets a specific price at which you want to buy the stock, helping you control how much you pay. Manage your investment. After purchasing the stock, monitor your investment. Keep up with NVIDIA's performance and relevant market news. Adjust your investment strategy based on performance and your financial goals. Consider diversification. While investing in individual stocks like NVIDIA can be profitable, it's also risky. Consider diversifying your investments to manage risk better. Plan for taxes. Be aware of the tax implications of buying and selling stocks.
Yeah.
In many countries, capital gains from stock investments are taxable.
See, I'm just scared to do something like that because I just feel like I'm going to take a giant loss.
It's completely understandable to feel cautious about starting to invest in stocks. It's a big step, and it's smart to approach it with a healthy respect for risks involved. Here's a breakdown of the basics to help you feel more prepared and confident. 1. Understanding stock investing. Stock investing involves buying shares of a company. When you own a stock, you own a small part of that company. The value of your shares can go up or down based on how well the company performs and how the market perceives its future prospects. 2. Opening a brokerage account. A brokerage account is like a special type of bank account that allows you to buy and sell stocks. When you're choosing a brokerage, consider fees. Look for low transaction fees and no monthly fees. Ease of use. Choose a platform that is user-friendly. Resources. Some brokers offer educational resources and tools to help beginners. 3. Risk management to manage.
All right. All right, well, give me the best one, please.
Choosing the best brokerage account largely depends on your specific needs, preferences, and investment goals.
Charles Schwab.
However, I can highlight a few highly regarded options that cater to different types of investors. 1. Charles Schwab Pros. No account minimums, $0 commission on stocks and ETFs, and access to a wide range of investment options and robust research tools. Cons. The platform can be overwhelming for absolute beginners due to the breadth of features. 2. Fidelity Investments Pros. Known for excellent customer support, no account minimums, and no commission fees on stock, ETF, and option trades. It also offers easy-to-use tools and detailed research resources. Cons. Some users find the app interface a bit cluttered. 3. Robinhood Pros. Extremely user-friendly, especially for beginners. It offers commission-free trading and is very straightforward to use, making it attractive for new investors. Cons. Lacks some of the advanced tools and investment options provided by more comprehensive brokers. 4.
All right. Anyway, it's getting late at night, so that's all I can do. We made it all the way through part 3, which is a big accomplishment. So when we go back, we'll be doing the next part. So yeah, I'm already, based on what I'm reading here, making some decisions about my future. I've decided to renew my CCNA by going down the data center track because of all the money that might be invested in it. And then yeah, maybe I'll look into some stocks in data center companies, Nvidia for sure, a bunch of companies. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.